What's going on, folks? Welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast, your daily podcast covering the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Nick Farabaugh, right for Pittsburgh Sports Now, call games at WPTS Radio, and I am a production assistant at ACC Network. And folks, today we are continuing to talk a little bit about things happening at the Senior Bowl. It's a rainy day down here in Mobile. We'll talk about how Kenny Pickett performed there with only one glove on. We'll talk about did he help or hurt his draft stock? Were others standing out above him? We'll also continue to talk about guys like Damarri Mathis and Cal Adamice. We'll also talk about Pitt men's basketball losing to Wake Forest on the road today, and we'll talk about the takeaways we can take from that and what caused it. All of it's coming up here on Locked On Pitt.
You are Locked On Pitt, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the Locked On Pitt podcast, your daily podcast covering the Pittsburgh Panthers. And folks, it's always thank you for making Locked On Pitt your first listen every day. And folks, today we are talking about, of course, Kenny Pickett again, day 2 here at the Senior Bowl for Mr. Pickett and him officially confirming some official interviews. I think the Browns, the Buccaneers, the Steelers, the Broncos. There were a few teams that he had confirmed that he did speak with today at the media breakfast where we got to talk to all the players and they were great. And Kenny in particular talking about a lot of stuff like his hand size, how people seem to think he had a flash in the pan, if you will, but no, simply put, it wasn't true, right? And so this is something that when you look at Pitt overall and what they prepared Kenny Pickett for, I think they did a nice job of that. And more importantly, boy, the weather in Pittsburgh obviously prepared Kenny Pickett for this moment. And Pickett was a dude who came in and balled out. And I felt that when you looked at what he did yesterday, it was pretty solid again. And we talked a lot about his consistency yesterday, some inaccuracy I didn't expect. But I thought he had a good day. Now, today was a unique challenge. It didn't just rain in Mobile, it poured. And they actually allowed them to play outside. They practiced outside. So we got to see Kenny Pickett in the rain. And if you are a team that was scared about the hand size, and this was something, this was important. And I mean, very important for a guy like Kenny Pickett. And so doing what he did in the rain, wearing only one glove because the other one just would have been too slick. This is this was a big day for Kenny Pickett. Pickett needed to have a big day today. And I'll say this, he wasn't the best player here. He wasn't the best quarterback here today. I think that Pickett was either the second or the third best quarterback today. And he's fallen into that zone, right? That second, third range. I think Malik Willis was clearly the best quarterback today. His wow moments were consistent, and he had a great day. Just some absolutely amazing throws from him. He looked like he was in his zone. The hot streak was coming. He made a few great plays out of structure. Basically, everything I wanted to see from Malik Willis in terms of can he get better from day 1 to day 2, he did. Howe, I think, took a step back. Sam Howe had a really good day yesterday, and it was very apparent of how comfortable he was just playing right away. But today, that accuracy was very bad. The weather really got to Sam Howe. Desmond Ridder was a little bit inaccurate. He was up and down, probably had the best throw of the day, but outside of that, he also had plenty of bad misses. Carson Strong had a few nice sequences, but the arm didn't seem to push the ball down the field. Bailey Zappi was fine, nothing crazy. And then we get to Kenny Pickett. And so Pickett today is a very nuanced evaluation because you have to approach what he did today with the context of we've already seen him put tape on that says he can play in this type of weather, right? So I will say this. I don't think he alleviated hand size concerns today. This was a day where he could have come out, really rocketed the ball around, really ripped it through the rain, and things wouldn't have mattered. And then they would have been saying, okay, no one cares about the hand size. I don't think that's what he did today. 3 fumbled snaps, I think, were bad, and under center, he just didn't look comfortable today at all. The ball was slick. It was coming off his head. He was wearing the one glove on his throwing hand, the offhand, trying to get that better grip on the ball was something that he really, really tried to take advantage of. So Kenny Pickett using that type of offhand and trying to execute at a high level. The passes today he threw were not pretty. It wasn't a pretty spiral. It wasn't beautiful. And I'll say this, you know, Kenny Pickett today was he was it was concerning to a degree because this was your day. If you were Kenny Pickett, this was your day to get rid of the hand size concerns. But instead, Kenny Pickett came out today, fumbled a few snaps, overthrew a few bad balls. He was inaccurate at times. He didn't throw a great ball. There were concerns today with Kenny Pickett. He did not dispel those hand size concerns, and that's the biggest thing. Kenny Pickett today did not dispel those, and he could have hurt himself today. That's a legitimate argument. Kenny Pickett could have hurt himself today. Had a pretty solid day yesterday. A lot of the quarterbacks struggled today, but I think Pickett was in that group. And while he had decent plays, and for the most part, as the session went on, I thought he started to find his accuracy a little bit more compared to the other guys. He was probably outdueled out there by Malik Willis handily. And then when you look at other guys, there were times where I could say Howell was better than him, Strong was better than him, Ritter was better than him today at times. And I think Pickett is comfortably in that middle of the pack. He did not separate himself today. And I thought he did separate himself yesterday. And so the inclement weather gave teams a really unique opportunity to see what Kenny Pickett could do when he wasn't given perfect conditions, face on. And I thought that was a unique opportunity for a lot of these teams to get to see what Pickett could do. And Kenny Pickett wasn't as sharp as I thought he could be. And I thought that if he could showcase it, if he could showcase what he did, there would be big time things. And I don't think he did. And so it was a little bit disappointing for Kenny Pickett. Again, I don't think he's, going to fall the first round or anything. Because, when you talk to guys about Kenny Pickett, there are guys that just pop out to people. And when you talk, scouts and personnel and all that, these guys really like Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's very much liked around the NFL. His toughness, his swagger, his ability to extend plays, all-platform throws, the leap he took this year, very enticing. Teams like the Panthers, the Broncos, Saints, they all really like him. The Steelers, of course, like him as well. So there's a lot of teams that like him. But if he was going to be pushing that upper echelon, right, if he was going to be pushed over that edge a little bit more, and it went from, one thing to another, you needed him to come out here and play at a high level. And he didn't today, not in the rain. He didn't dispel those concerns. And that's a little bit of what is disappointing for me with Kenny Pickett, because the rain, he played in Pittsburgh, and people should just go to the tape. But you are also going to remember that on-hand experience at the Senior Bowl. You're going to remember that rainy day where he missed a few guys over their heads because it slipped out. And you got to wonder, was it overall their hand size, or was it more so something else in Kenny Pickett's game? Either way, it's concerning, right? So is there something in Kenny Pickett's game that maybe is not pertaining to hand size, or is the hand size? We'll see. But he did not do himself really any favors today in terms of his draft stock. And I thought that was significant overall. All right, folks. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Damarri Mathis and what he did today, and we'll also start talking about Pitt men's basketball. However, first, folks, I need to let you know about BetOnline because BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football continues to march through its playoffs right to the big game in a couple of weeks. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. And don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, folks, welcome back here on the Locked On Pitt podcast as we continue to talk a little bit about Senior Bowl. Kenny Pickett not really helping himself today through the rain, struggling a little bit with some accuracy and just not looking completely comfortable under center as well. Certainly will not end things in terms of what people want to do. But what about Damarri Mathis? Having a strong first day. I thought Damarri Mathis was extremely good and played at a very, very high level. In that first day, I was so impressed with Damarri Mathis. And today, continuing to work from the slot, but also working a little bit more outside. And I like that because Damarri Mathis was showcasing some versatility today in terms of that and being very comfortable. I thought today that this was a guy that showcased his physicality. You know, through the muck and mud, the guys weren't getting separation on Damarri Mathis. And he had a few really good reps today. He's fluid. He's got great eyes. You know, I talked to him today a little bit about that transition to the slot. He's had to relearn everything, essentially, by moving inside, right? Different leverage rules. You got to use your eyes differently. Guys, you have a different route tree. You got to read anticipations differently. Basically, everything has changed for him. And so Mathis is a guy that really seamlessly fit into not just the outside cornerback position, but he did nice in the slot today as well. Damarri Mathis, I think, was really good today as well. And in the one-on-ones, he looked great. He allowed, I think, maybe one reception today. Had another 2 pass breakups there. Damarri Mathis continues to just play at such a high level. And to me, Damarri is helping his stock a lot. I am very impressed with Damarri Mathis. I'm not sure that, you know, Damarri coming into this game and these practices was going to be round 5, round 6. I think he's working himself up into the round 4 range. I think he's given himself legitimate cred here. He's going to be a decent pick, you know, getting to that maybe top 150 range here. I think Damarri Mathis is going to go earlier than I thought he would, and he's having a great week. And, you know, it's so good to see what he's doing. And he talked about how that press quarter scheme is just helping him. And it's kind of allowing him to go and get better and improve. And this is a guy that is just going up, and up day after day. And so you're not just seeing him get more comfortable over time. You're seeing this guy play at a high level, play with his physicality, showcase his brand, do great in the one-on-ones, which is not easy for a DB to do. Everything you look at here, this is a guy that is proving himself to be quite formidable in that DB room, one of the better ones on that roster. For me so far, I think Damarri Mathis is doing a great job of that. All right, folks, well, let's switch over then to Pitt men's basketball as they did take a loss to Wake Forest on the road today. Jeff Capel and Jason Capel did return to the bench. However, Pitt still fell 91-75, a bit of a faster-paced game, if you will, for Pitt's purposes. I mean, usually things don't go quite like that. Things don't speed up like that. this is something that it kind of caught me off guard. Is Pitt actually shot 60 times, and they actually shot decently well, 48%, 7 of 16 from three. But the defense was just terrible today. And that's the key here. There were a few really good things. Odukali had a great game today. Femi Odukali looked great. John Hughley had another good game. Wasn't Jamarius Burton's best game. Onyeze Kuda had a pretty solid game as well. But when you looked at kind of what everything was coming around, the defense was just dreadful. And, to open up with 3 threes to open the game, set the tone. Wake Forest was shooting hot. 15 made threes, shooting 52% from beyond the arc in this game. That's absurd. That is absurd. They shot 55% from the field. Wake simply won because Pitt couldn't defend the perimeter. And so this is 100% a failure to adjust. It felt like the same issues that showed up in the first half showed up in the second half. Nothing got fixed. It never felt like there was any type of coherent game plan defensively that allowed Pitt to do anything. Pitt was absolutely a mess. They wouldn't close out. They didn't have their switches in order. This was absolutely ugly for Pitt. And there were a lot of things that contributed to that. The slow offensive start for the team, only scoring 24 points. This is not a team that can afford that against a team shooting this well like Wake Forest was. And, Odukali played at a really, really high level today. One of his best games in recent memory, just looking at what he did with 23 points today. 10 of 14 from the field, 2 of 3 field goals. This was a really great game for Femi Odukali. And when you go, to like just the split box, it's not like it's crazy, but the 18 points off turnovers for Wake Forest jump out at you. And so there are things that jump out to you, but it really comes down to the fact that Pitt could not defend the three. And if you want to do better in conference play, if you want to play teams tough and win these tough games that people don't expect you to, you better defend the perimeter. And they did not today, and that's something that they have had issues with, really. So this is a team that, for Pitt was just they weren't playing at the level that you would expect them to, and that innately gave them a disadvantage in this game, straight up. So there was things that they have to improve from here on out. All right, folks, we'll continue to talk about this loss to Wake Forest. But first, let me let you know about Get Upside, because this is Nick Farrell with an incredible app. Everyone who buys gas needs to know about Get Upside. My listeners are earning cash back for every gallon of gas every time they fill up. Just download the free Get Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now. Use the promo code SCORE for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first fill up. cash back. Don't pay full price anymore. Get cash back using Get Upside. Just download the app for free and use the promo code SCORE for 25 cents per gallon or more on your first tank. Some people who drive a lot are making as much as $200 to $300 a year in cash back, and there's no catch. The cash back gets added right to your account, so you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use the promo code SCORE to get 25 cents per gallon or more cash back on your first tank. That's code SCORE. All right, folks, welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast. Here talking about as Pitt loses to Wake Forest in this game. And again, not a great game for Pitt in this one. A tough loss to take. And so here's the thing that was so tough about this game to me. And Pitt in this game was who we thought they would be. But when you look at what essentially went down with Wake Forest this offseason, how they're coming out and performing, the record they have, the pieces they have, it gives you a bit of an eerie feeling, doesn't it? Like, this is what Pitt could have been. This is what people wanted Pitt to be. Overhauling their team, bringing in transfers, making it a much better, more complete team, and they haven't been that. They haven't been it at all. The bigger thing that has actually been pertinent to Wake Forest has been things like ball movement. But more importantly, they just straight up have more talent. They evaluated right. They brought in guys where they needed it. And you know, Pitt, they just don't have the talent to compete at a high level. And so I will say this. This is something that when you look at what the Panthers have to do, the blueprint for next year, it's an absolute transfer portal overhaul. That's what Pitt has to do. Pitt absolutely has to go and do the same things. It's a kind of a look into what they need to do if Jeff Capel comes back and Jeff Capel wants to save his job. Steve Forbes has his team humming. This team's playing at a really high level right now. And they got contributions from multiple players. 5 guys were in double digits. Sy had 9. It was really a dynamic performance by this team. And they exploited it. Credit to them. They exploited the holes that Pitt showcased. And this was such an ugly game for Pitt. And when you look at it overall, Pitt just absolutely is not just playing in a cohesive manner right now. Ithiel Horton doesn't look good. He looks rusty. His defense was a negative net minus today. And again, there's that thought that you can trade offense for defense, but he's got to be better than that. There's a difference in terms of trading offense for defense and then the defense completely falling off a cliff. There's no point of that. Point to trade offense for defense is either one, match a team that's just so high paced and so high pressured and so high octane that you have to do that to keep up with them. But there's also the thought that, you know, this is a team that is now up on us. We need to come back somehow. In order to do that, we need our offensive lineup. But more importantly, you need to get stops. And Ithiel Horton right now is kind of muting some of that. And so it's tough to evaluate. It's very tough to evaluate this whole thing. It's one where you look at, I think, Pitt, and it's such a tough kind of evaluation. It really is. And it's not like this team isn't talented. They do have talent. John Hughey's great. I like Femi Odikali. I like Jamari's Burton a lot. Mogi's great, and even though they won't have him back next year. But they're not deep enough, and they're not talented enough in terms of that depth. They have 3 really solid players that you look at and say yes. And they have a fourth where you can qualify him in there, which would be Odo Cali. Outside of that, I mean, Jeffress, Santos, Collier, they're not really anything special to write home about. The bench is non-existent. Isaiah Kuda, he's a guy that gives them good minutes, but he's a guy that should not be starting and playing 30 minutes a game. It's not how this thing should be doing. It's not how this thing should be going down. Pitt should not be having to go with 5-man rotations just because no one else can play. That's something where that's on Jeff Capel not having that depth. That's on him. And if you want to be like a Wake Forest, you got to have depth. You got to have a deeper line. You got to give John Hughley a breather. You got to have the ability to work multiple rotations in to where you have different types of lineups and you can give different teams different issues because you can go small ball. You can go big. You have a 3-ball lineup. You have a more defensive lineup. You have these different types of lineups that can actually give you advantageous matchups against these teams. That's what Pitt has to do. And they straight up in this one just didn't. They lacked it, and they've lacked it for the most part all year as well. It's been a rough one for Pitt here going so far, and it doesn't look to be great as they try to finish out their ACC schedule. We'll see how many more wins they get. I think 5 should be the goal right now. It's a realistic goal, but we'll see if they get there. If they keep playing like this, they might not. So we'll see how it works out for Pitt. Well, folks, as always, thanks for listening to the Locked On Pitt podcast. Tomorrow we'll be back with the Senior Bowl content again. And as always, hail to Pitt.